Hello, my name's John Wadsworth, I'm an astrologer and I'm here in Egypt on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve 2011, to talk about the astrology of the coming year, 2012. The year, of course, on everybody's lips. We've been thinking about it, talking about it for a long time. And I've chosen this place to give this little presentation because I'm here at the temple of Dendera in Upper Egypt, which you can see just behind me here. And it's one of my favourite temples in Egypt, and it's one of the most extraordinary and beautiful temples, I think. It's a late kingdom temple, Ptolemaic era, and as well as the beautiful Hathor columns that you see, there are 24 of them in the hypostyle hall as you enter the temple behind me here. You have two extraordinary ceilings here. The famous Dendera zodiac is here, although it's only a replica. The original is in the Louvre, which is really where you want to see it. You only see a rather poor replica here. But what you do have downstairs, newly cleaned and renovated this year, are two wonderful portrayals of the signs of the zodiac, encompassed by the goddess Nut. And you can see all 12 signs. There are actually two depictions of her, one on either side of the temple, one on the left, one on the right. And you have the 6 signs of the zodiac encompassed in each of the 2 Nut ceilings. Nut is the goddess of the sky who arcs her body over the earth. You see she has these wavy lines which make up her body, and inside her body you have 6 signs on each side of the temple. And the zodiac here begins with Cancer, which is depicted as a scarab, and you have the signs then go out from Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, the scales, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn on one side, and on the other side you have the other 6 signs, beautifully depicted here, as if, you know, to remind us of the antiquity of the zodiac, clearly with a Greek influence. This is a Greek-influenced Egypt now that we're dealing with, but also incorporating Egyptian symbolism. We have the scarab. We have, for Aquarius, we have the symbol of Harpy, the Egyptian god that represented the Nile, and the 2 jugs that he carries represent the overflowing Nile, which represented that abundance of nature at the flooding of the Nile, the annual flooding of the Nile, which gave Egypt its wonderful fertility in that narrow strip either side of the great river. And it always strikes me here. I get struck by the idea that there is a sense of prophecy here. There's a sense of knowing, a knowing about the past, a knowing about our origins, which Hathor is so much connected to. Hathor represents the divine birth of the human being. She's there at conception. She helps with the birthing process on all levels of what that means. And if we think about where we are now in the world, in this pivotal moment in our history, this idea that we are going through, that the earth itself, and that each one of the humanity itself perhaps is going through a huge rebirthing process, and Hathor carries that energy of the rebirth. So how appropriate that we're here at this moment, at this cuspal moment in our history as we enter 2012, and contemplating the zodiac, contemplating the astrological wisdom that this temple embodies really in its beautiful ceiling artistry here. So let's just have a think about the astrology of 2012. We're at a pivotal moment, you know, as I've said. We have the 2 major planets, Uranus and Pluto. Uranus in the sign of Aries, the lamb depicted on the ceiling there with the head reverted. And we have, that's Uranus, the planet Uranus in Aries. We have Pluto in the sign of the goat in Capricorn. And this year, finally, having promised to make this alignment for so long, they finally, in June of this year, make this absolutely monumental 90-degree square aspect to each other around the end of June 2012. And really this is the beginning of an unfolding over the next 3 years between 2012 and 2015, when these 2 planets make 7 square aspects. And of all the astrological configurations that we have around this time, this is the most extraordinary, the most pivotal. It's the first time these two planets, which represents revolutionary change, profound transformational change that shakes the very fabric of society, of humanity's understanding of itself. These made a conjunction back in the 1960s in Virgo, and they now make their first, from that seed moment, I see that as a seed moment in the mid-60s, they now make their powerful square aspect in 2012. And I think that the incredible sweep of change that we're seeing across the world, politically, socially, economically, spiritually, is really going to find its kind of moment of most acute outpouring this year in 2012. I think it really is going to live up to its billing as a kind of apex moment, really, but also the beginning of something. I think that a lot of things will come to an end this year. A lot of the old structures that are already quaking, we could see, really falling apart, because something new now has to be born. Just as we learn in the iconography and the symbolism here in the temple that everything must die and be reborn in the most profound way on all levels. Hathor represents that rebirth at all levels of our being, and to connect with her here is such a profound thing. I've been so moved. It's my 3rd time at this temple, and I've been so moved to experience her in her true glory here. Hathor becomes Aphrodite in the Greek tradition, the goddess of love and beauty, but she carries something even deeper, I think, in the Egyptian tradition. She carries that profound. She is the carrier of the energy of rebirth, and I think that's where we're at. And we're going to have to deal with these great changes that are happening within ourselves, within the world. Our planet is on the brink in so many ways, and I think we're going to see a lot of breakdown and collapse on so many levels. But at the same time, why I come here really for this, to connect into the astrology of next year, is to be reminded of that divine birthing process that happens here, that Hathor represents here, and that is so beautifully and uniquely represented on the ceilings of this temple. So what else is going on in 2012? Well, we now have Neptune in the sign of Pisces. Neptune in its own sign, Pisces the fish. Again, we see the fish here depicted on the ceiling of the temple. And Neptune returns to its own sign every 165 years, and it's returned to its own sign this year, and now begins its 14-year run through the sign of Pisces. A sign where the boundaries become very blurred, where we have to dissolve something, to transcend something profound in our collective awareness. With Neptune, nothing is clear or defined. Everything has to be understood in a state of flux, of dissolution, of disintegration. And so Neptune in its own sign, when Neptune's in its own sign, we experience that most obviously. At one level, this could be, we could be entering a kind of a virtual reality, but we could also be entering a profound phase of imagination, where we reimagine our existence, where we reimagine ourselves in a new way, where our hearts are more open, where we experience more compassion, where we have to experience compassion and our connectedness with all things. So Neptune's journey through Pisces is a big part of this transitional phase, journeying through 2012. We have Saturn in the sign of Libra, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. Interestingly, again, being here at the Hathor temple, at Aphrodite's temple, we have these two great planets, Jupiter and Saturn, both in Venus-ruled signs. Taurus, represented most obviously through the bull of Hathor. Jupiter, the planet of abundance, in her sign. So here we have a great sense of hope, I think, a great sense of being able to tap into our own abundance, into our own joy, into the power of our own bodies. There's a great deal to be gained by really knowing that fertile aspect of ourselves. Taurus is a sign of life, just as Hathor is a sign of life. The festivities that happened here at Dendera were all about life and music and joy, and the union of Hathor with her consort Horus at Edfu every year would be a union filled with such joy, because Horus representing the light, the reborn sun, Hathor representing the process of the delivery of birth, fertility and so on. So here we have with Jupiter in Taurus this lovely sense of earthy, sensuous life force. In Libra we have Saturn in Libra, so Libra represents that aesthetic aspect of the goddess of Hathor, of Aphrodite, of Venus. And here Libra, here Hathor expresses herself through the divine balance, the divine proportion, the divine harmony, which you see in the temples. I mean, these temples are just shrines to the divine harmony that exists in nature. And with Saturn in the sign of Libra, as it has been for the last couple of years, we've had to know about the integrity of the proportion, the integrity of the balance, and be tested in that. Saturn tests us. Saturn will force us to confront what is out of balance when it's in Libra. And we've each had to confront what's out of balance in ourselves, in order that we can take that next journey that Saturn takes this year when he moves into Scorpio, a sign where we plunge into the depths of our own transformation, where we've passed beyond the weighing of the heart, the weighing of with the scales, where the heart and the feather are weighed in the balance. We then have to journey with Anubis into that underworld where we're plunged, and we have to connect to the truth. We have to know the truth of our own underworld journey, so that we can be reborn again through that. So with Jupiter and Saturn, this is the journey that Jupiter and Saturn take this year. Jupiter in Taurus makes a trine aspect this year to Pluto, which again emphasizes the need to illuminate the shadow, to make the darkness visible. Jung said that in our shadow lies our deepest our deepest light, our true gold, our true wealth. And the Jupiter-Saturn aspect this year, the trine that happens in the spring, I think really facilitates that knowing of the light in the darkness. So there's a lot going on astrologically. We have some very interesting. I've just touched some of the highlights, really, just giving a sort of general overview. But it was really, I really wanted to communicate the power of the rebirth that I think is coming through this, because there's a lot of fear around, of course, in the world now. A lot of people in fear that such big changes are happening now on all levels. That Egypt and the Egyptian tradition and the power in these temples gives that sense of context, that there are these bigger cycles that we are within, these bigger cycles of time which just really witness and oversee the great changes that happen in our world and on our planet and in the evolution of our human consciousness. So that's all I want to say, but I hope you can take something from this short little presentation, and also to say that I'm back in England soon, and I've got 2 more courses gearing up for 2012, astrology courses in Glastonbury. You can find details on my website at www.kairosastrology.co.uk.